public services and in defence of pensions.
We currently see an ideological conflict. We see the protection of corporations and them being allowed to get away with tax evasion. And we also see people being cut off their benefits, people losing their jobs, people losing their pensions. I don't think that any of us on this street really think that's acceptable. I don't think that's fair. I don't really think that anyone here thinks that's fair. I don't think that the police here really think that's fair. I don't think that the Vodafone employees really think that's fair. And that is why we are here peacefully protesting on the street and wanting to show to you that things can be done differently, that we can hold the corporations that can.
Teachers and nurses, face the act, because Vodafone won't pay their tax. Teachers and nurses, face the act, because Vodafone won't pay their tax. Teachers and nurses, face the act, because Vodafone won't pay their tax. Money for jobs and education, not for greedy corporations. Money for jobs and education, not for greedy corporations. Money for jobs and education, not for greedy corporations. Money for jobs and education, not for greedy corporations. Striking workers, show their way. May the greedy bankers pay. Striking workers, show their way. May the greedy bankers pay.
Shame on Vodafone, who have refused to pay $6 billion in taxes. Whilst we face the cuts, we face the brunt of this recession caused by the rich. Vodafone get away with not paying £6 billion in taxes.
What is happening internationally, and I think like the IMF is an example of plutocracy, a really kind of corrupt institution that makes these kind of loans that are based on taking up of contracts, and the contracts essentially rip the country dry and mean they have to privatise its water. And that's kind of why people are fighting back in Greece, and I think this is ultimately like something that we've got to be concerned about here.
Teachers, nurses, face the act, because Vodafone won't pay their tax. Teachers, nurses, face the act, because Vodafone won't pay their tax. Last year there was mass protest when the workers came out demanding higher wages. They were shot down by the police. These are the kind of connections that we need to make. We understand that the material produced in Britain is coming from the rest of the world. It's not coming from nowhere, it's coming from exploited people across the world. We need to unite that with the attack on living standards taking place in this society, with millions of people being thrown off the sickness benefit processed through Cadogan Street by a private company, Arcos Origins. We need to highlight the attack on workers' rights now with the PCS coming out and make clear to Strathclyde Police and to every other institution that thinks they can tell working class people how they live. But we don't accept the cuts. The debt in this country, like Greece and Spain, belongs to the bankers, belongs to the upper classes, belongs to the billion and millionaires, not to the people. This is a message that we're out here to send to people today. The fight back begins here, when normal people stand up for their rights and demand a society that they're getting control of, and they hold the power and they hold the wealth that we create. Thank you.
We stand outside Vodafone, one of the biggest tax-dodging corporations in existence. We do so to draw attention to their fraudulent economic activity, and we do so in order to highlight this action and to make the connection between the attacks on living standards, which is now well underway in every part, it's safe to say, in every part of this globe. We stand here today also in solidarity with those in the firing line in Greece, who today have no other option but to continue the intensification of a struggle which will surely indeed intensify in the coming days, weeks and years. We're asking people to stop and show their appreciation for a protest here, which also seeks to tell the people of Glasgow of the atrocious activities of Glasgow vulnerable people in this city. We're also standing here in order to highlight the abuse of power by Strathclyde police who come here in order to intimidate people like me, people like those holding banners, people who are prepared to speak and articulate a very straightforward message that this criminal conspiracy, which is this government, must be held to account, and that we're not going to be prepared to stand and pay with their lives and health and education in order to resolve the contradictions of a system that has absolutely nothing to do with us. We're standing here in order to say we oppose all of the cuts, and we're prepared to say we refuse to pay for a crisis that has absolutely nothing to do with working class people. It has everything to do with the crisis of capitalism. And we're standing here to oppose the police presence because we actually still have rights in this country. And while we have the right to speak, unlike in other countries, we're going to exercise our right to speak. And to speak the truth is surely a wonderful thing, because every day we hear in the media of the attacks on living standards, the attacks on the poor, the vulnerable, the disabled, the unemployed, but yet we never hear what caused the crisis in the first place. We're here to draw attention, and in fact it's organisations like Vodafone and the entire capitalist rotten system, which is rotten to the absolute core, which in order to resolve this crisis will have to cause more wars. And they're not just satisfied with destroying Iraq and taking it back to the Dark Ages, they're not even satisfied with taking Afghanistan back to the Dark Ages. They're also set to have more wars, as we've seen. We stand here 104 days in a brutal occupation of the Libyan people, and we're standing here in order to say if you tolerate the obliteration of the people of Libya, then your rights will be next. It will be necessary for anti-cuts activists to oppose these illegal acts by a government which is absolutely desperate in order to attack poor people across this country. I'm also going to say this: I'm not the only speaker today, because there are other people who want to speak, and there's going to need to be an old megaphone, because in